Hello, welcome once again to It's a Frankly Harry podcast. I'm your host, Frank Weber. So glad you could join me once again in the forest this week. I'm so thankful for you. I think you've been giving me a nice pre-Christmas present. If that made sense at all or not. The show's hits or listens or however they measure it here on Substack is ticking up tremendously, and it's a lot more than it was a few months ago or even a year ago, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. You are the best fans in the world, and I've got another great show for you this week with several different topics that we'll discuss. I guess you can call it discuss. I know this is kind of a one-way show. Continuing with my theme of analyzing commercials, and I'm not really analyzing the commercial too much here. But, and by the way, I hope you have had a chance to look at the Gravite commercial that's out this Christmas that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Found it very interesting. It's still on all the time on Fox News or Fox Business, maybe. I can't remember now. Definitely Fox News. But I wanted to talk briefly about another Christmas-specific product that I've noticed on TV lately. And while I was researching this and watching this on YouTube, I think there's actually several different manufacturers or brands of this. And I bring this up because 2025 has been kind of an unusual year for my wife and I, and she decorated the outside of our house with lights and a wreath, but decided not to do any inside decorations this year, including a Christmas tree, which was pretty surprising to me, but circumstances are being kind of what they are. I guess it's not too unusual or out of the ordinary, but I had noticed I think when I watch TV at the gym, when I'm on the treadmill or the exercise bike, or I don't know if I've seen it on my TV here because they have a different cable system there, but there's a nifty product that's basically like a fold up and fold down Christmas tree. And maybe this isn't new, and there's probably several manufacturers that make it, but I find it intriguing and nifty because it's the ultimate, and even though it's the simplicity and convenience, and maybe you could argue maybe kind of a laziness to it, it's very simple and seems to be fairly stress-free. But basically you just have this case and you set up a stand with a pole on it, and then you just kind of drape the tree over the pole, and it looks pretty good. It's pre-lit, and it may have like a choice of lights, or I think it's got some bows on it, and then the option of like putting ornaments and stuff on there. And you could say that this is maybe a reflection of our society and not being willing or able to put a lot of effort into Christmas decorating, but I don't know. I kind of like it myself. I'm not really big on decorations and the stress of putting those up and taking those down every year, and but I find it kind of amusing. And I know one of the commercials is being done by Bulbhead, which I don't think is actually the manufacturer, but maybe some manufacturers come to it so that they can get exposure on these ads. And anyway, I always think about whether I should suggest doing something like that to my wife. I think I would probably get into a lot of trouble, or being called lazy or crazy or whatever often happens. But yeah, I think there's several versions of those fold up and fold down Christmas trees. When you're done with it, you just do everything in reverse and put it back in its package till next year, and seems like it makes a lot of sense to me. I, in talking about these commercials, I'm kind of thinking that I'm giving a lot of these products a free plug, and I'm not getting any kind of remuneration for it. Not that I'm looking for any kind of monetary compensation or anything like that, but that's kind of what they used to do in the old days. If you gave somebody an unsolicited plug, they may send you a small gift, perhaps like I know the circulation of the show isn't that great right now, but they might give you a small payment, maybe not even a monetary payment, but maybe they might send a free Christmas tree or something over. But haven't seen, I haven't seen that one yet because this show is just out now, but been talking about other things like in the past, like Gravite and HomeServe and emergency kits and things like that. Haven't heard from those folks either, but not that I'm trying to be greedy or anything, but just, as always, trying to call your attention to things that may be of cultural or societal importance. And I thought I would start off with that today, since we are in the Christmas season and that commercial is pretty prominently out there right now. I was just looking outside. A vehicle from the Health Science Center that I used to work for just drove by. I wonder if they're looking for me or not. It's been going on 3 years since I worked there, but anyway, just thought I'd bring up my own little mini conspiracy theory there for you. Anyway, keeping with the subject of Christmas, well, somewhat. I hope many of you have been doing your shopping and getting ahead on that, because there's not that many days left for that. But as many of you know, I went back to school this semester, and one of the classes that I took in business was on information systems, which of course is an offshoot, or if not an offshoot, it's a kind of an outgrowth of information technology. And the most interesting classes to me are those that are obviously I learn the most in, and kind of are the most eye-opening. And I don't know how many people know in this world and can appreciate that there's a thing out there called big data. And this big data is about you, it's about me. It's being constantly mined, as it were, to help various vendors, various companies get a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And I understand, makes complete sense how it works in business and how it works toward that advantage now. And so I'm very appreciative of learning in that course. And we also discussed things like AI. And if any of you have been listening to this show for any length of time, I'm not really a big believer that AI is going to necessarily take over the world. But AI and some other facets of big data and data mining, they do affect our privacy in ways that I'm not sure everybody really understands. A few years ago, I went to a luncheon with some other dentists in my town, because the corporate outfits were starting to come into town and trying to corner the market, and they have a lot of advantages that the old mom and pop shops didn't have. And somewhere along the way, the conversation came up about our smartphones listening to us. And I did an example on my final exam. There was a question about a potential privacy issue that could come up. And like, if I'm having a conversation with my wife and I tell her that I need new shoes, this was the actual question, by the way, and I tell her that I need new shoes, it wouldn't be unusual to see an ad on your phone from Adidas or Under Armour or whoever giving you an offer or a coupon or something for new shoes, as if the phone is actually listening to us. Now, that's pretty good for those particular businesses who can do stuff like that. But then I postulated the question, like, well, what else are they listening to? Because we talk about a lot of important things on the phone all the time, things that are much more private than buying and wearing shoes. Whether it's business deals, whether it's personal deals, things going on in the family, that sort of thing. So I have to ask the question to you, and since this is a human show and this is a very, society and culture show, like, I don't know how many people are aware of this privacy issue, because a lot of us, not so much my generation, but a lot of us have been conditioned to have these phones and electronic devices around. And my question, in a sense of priority and balance, is like, how important is it to us to maintain at least a certain amount of personal privacy on these issues? Certainly we have a need to be in the market and buy things from time to time, but at what expense to our personal and business and family information is what I have to ask you. Because if we were more aware of this and we took a more interest in defending our rights and our needs in that regard, we might not be we might be able to, I don't necessarily want to say rise up, but we might make more of a priority to protect that information that needs to be protected. And it seems like almost nothing on the web is protected anymore. It was a big eye-opener, and I could get into a whole lot of other details about it, but that's something, that's just a question or a postulation or a desire that I kind of wish we would maybe take a little bit more heed on. And I thought that I would bring it up here for your potential musing, as it were. But because nothing is safe, I think in the course we discussed that the internet was basically the end of privacy, and where it's managed to go in the last 30 years, even though it's very important to our lives, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily going to go away, but, at what cost, at what cost is it really to us, and the things that this technology has brought about, a lot more computer viruses and malware and privacy issues and identity theft that really wasn't a thing 30, 40 years ago. It's just a little bit of a question for you that I wanted to throw out there real quick, and hopefully it gives you a little pause for thought. So, but anyway, that's what happens when I get into a course that I find to be very interesting and very eye-opening, and just question about what do you, the audience, think about that is all that I'm trying to do there. The last thing I wanted to get into today, I have a lot to say about this, and I was very compelled and moved to talk about this. Some of you may find this to be a little counterintuitive where I'm concerned, but this isn't really this is never intended to be a political discussion or anything like that. But I, like a lot of people, this is what we're on Tuesday. I know I'm always telling the dates of when I record this, but this is Tuesday, that's December the 16th, and the other night on December 14th, I was very shocked and horrified to hear about the tragic deaths of Rob Reiner and his wife Michele in their home near Hollywood. And nobody, of course, deserves to be murdered and die in that fashion. And I am very, very saddened, and I do send out my prayers to their family, and my condolences. And I'm really, really saddened by that, and I wasn't really sure how to attack this exactly on this topic, because like I the way that I would start off, I should say, is when people who we see on TV or the movies or a podcast or a book even, they make themselves known to us. Now, I never met Rob or his wife or even his dad, Carl. But I liked their work. I enjoyed it. The celebrity mentality is, or this, not mentality so much, but just the idea of being celebrity is that you make yourselves available to us, whether it's in our homes or in a theater or, like I said, in electronic media like podcasting or whatever, and we get to know you vicariously. And it's almost like we know you as an actual friend. And Rob Reiner has been around really my entire life in some form or another. And I enjoyed his work. Like I said, he has a comedy background. Not so much stand-up, but he worked a lot in comedy. And, of course, his late father, Carl, I remember him, of course, as a movie maker who did a number of movies, including The Jerk, which Rob has a small cameo in that a lot of people are unaware of, uncredited cameo, where he's the pickup truck driver that drives Navin, Steve Martin's character, down to the end of this fence, which was his first hitchhiker ride when Navin left home in that movie, if you recall. Of course, Rob was known most for initially as being Meathead, Mike Stivic on All in the Family, and playing that role for most of that show's run and most of Archie Bunker's run, really. And then, of course, he got into directing and producing a lot of different movies, some of which I didn't even really remember or know about. Of course, everybody knows about Princess Bride and When Harry Met Sally, and I didn't recall that he also did Misery, which I don't think I ever really saw. I thought it was a little bit too creepy for my taste, but he also did A Few Good Men, which I remember really enjoying about this time 33 years ago, right before Christmas, in fact, was when that movie was out, and I can't believe it's been that long since then. But he obviously did that, and he did a number of other works, too numerous to list. He actually, a few years ago, one of the more recent ones, did a I guess it was something of a biopic or in the theaters on the life of LBJ, who, in my opinion, remains a pretty controversial political figure to this day, primarily because of the Vietnam War and the Great Society. But he gets treated with kid gloves by a lot of the more liberal or left-leaning people, because he was able to pass a lot of Kennedy's legislative agendas, like the Civil Rights Act and things like that. But like I said, he remains a controversial figure, especially in his home state of Texas. But I never saw the movie. I didn't see a lot of his movies, but I did see some of them. And the LBJ movie actually starred Woody Harrelson, who has always had the image of being like a baby face to me. And I know it's been a long time since Cheers, but it would seem weird to have a baby face playing LBJ, and apparently the movie had some criticism because of Woody's makeup in it. But anyway, I just read a little bit about Rob's life. I did not know he was married quite a few years ago now to the late Penny Marshall, who played Laverne from Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and I learned a little bit about his life, and I don't. I think he was a good one-on-one conversation for a lot of people, and I hear that he was also very kind-hearted, and I know when he died the other night, there were people who were not being particularly sensitive or understanding during that time, and I don't. I mean, obviously, I don't condone that or anything. It is difficult, though, to do a tribute, though, without mentioning the fact that he was a liberal activist, and he was very passionate in his beliefs. I think he was pretty honest and sincere in that, though, and I do appreciate that. I do, if you genuinely believe in something, and you're there to put that forward and to bring that agenda to the forefront, because you honestly believe in it, then I really appreciate that. I really do. Even though I was on a different place on the political spectrum than he is, because and I have to just say that for completeness here, but it's very sad what happened to him and his wife. Apparently, he was murdered, stabbed. I think they were both stabbed by their son. Nick is the alleged killer, and who's now in custody. And I can't imagine the trying times that the rest of the family is going through. So I just, I have to say a few things about it. I think that's only fair. I'm talking about somebody again in Rob Reiner, who was ubiquitous throughout my life, and was very good at his craft. A great, I think he was a tremendous actor, tremendous director, mainly, sometimes producer and writer, and I learned other things about him. He's wrote a little bit on Happy Days, wrote something for Partridge Family. May have even appeared in those shows once or twice. But I always find it interesting what we can learn about new people all the time. It really is fascinating. It's really makes life worthwhile when you learn new things and new interesting things about people. The last thing I wanted to, and so anyway, I guess before I move on, got a little ahead of myself there. So again, my condolences to the Reiner family and the tragedy, and certainly you're in our prayers, thoughts, and I can't imagine the grief that they're going through right now. So, and then the last thing that I wanted to mention real quickly, I don't want people to misunderstand me on this here, but I thought, as many of you know, in the last, I probably need to start on this again, but in June of this year, I wound up finishing the Bible and read through the entire, what is basically a Protestant version of the Bible, and the NIV, actually New International Version Study Bible, which has a lot of great footnotes, almost like you're in seminary. And there's a passage in there, and I can't tell you exactly where it is, and in fact, it's not even, the biblical text itself doesn't say much about it, and I think the NIV study note elaborated on it, but it made me kind of think a little bit about this situation. I didn't consider Rob Reiner or anybody who is on the other spectrum to be enemies or anything. I think they are fellow human beings who are potential friends, and people that we could potentially learn a few things about and from, and maybe enrich our lives by engaging with them. And so it brought up a passage where, and I know, hopefully I'm not rambling on too much here because we're getting a little bit later in this show, but there was later in the Old Testament, I think there was a passage where, maybe just one verse, where the kingdom of Judah, and this is back when Israel has been split into Israel and Judah, and I believe the armies of Judah had won a battle against the Assyrians. And, maybe just one battle, because I think Judah eventually lost the war, but in fact, I know they did, because there was a captivity for a little while. But after they had won that battle, they had the Assyrians. They kept them around and fed them before they sent them back home. Went back home, and I always thought that was something that was very. That's certainly something that seems unusual in our society today, in this country for sure. But I have seen this done once before, and I mentioned this on the show, I think on my previous podcast. It's a Frankly Harry podcast. A couple of years ago, I had a friend who sadly passed away about 2 years ago, named Jay Leeson, who became pretty prominent in the media in Lubbock with his own radio show and podcast. And when we were both in college, he and I and some other students, he took us up to his high school alma mater, his football game in Abernathy, just up the road from Lubbock, and we watched their football game, and the Antelopes, as I think they were called, won the game. And then we went to a restaurant in town afterwards, and they had invited the visiting team to come in and share a meal with them before the team went back home. And I didn't understand at the time the real significance of this, but it makes sense if somebody is willing to travel, and whether they are in whether it's just a sporting event, just a game, or even something more dire like a war or a conflict, it makes sense to show them that hospitality before they leave and return to their town or their homeland or anything. And of course, I think that was also reflective of the hospitality in the Middle East, both anciently and even now, even though there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of hospitality there, in addition to all the negative reports of wars and conflicts and stuff that are also going on. But I just think that, that's the way that we should always be with other people, just willing to be willing to break bread with them and engage with them, and just be humane toward them, no matter what has happened or what is going on in their lives. And I think that was the ultimate lesson of that little verse and that little footnote in the study Bible about just treating your enemies well, especially when the battle, or whatever conflict you're having, is technically over. So I mean, and I think a lot of people, I personally don't really want conflicts. I'm kind of conflict avoidant, so I don't necessarily want to have a conflict. But there's no issue with. There's never any issue with. What should I say? Providing kindness and generosity towards anybody you come across. And had I met Rob or his wife or his father Carl, I know they were all different from me in certain views, but I would have loved to meet them, and I would have extended hospitality and cordiality and kindness and stuff had I been able to meet them. So that's the point of all this. I think we can go the extra mile in just reaching out to people and being a little bit more to other people than maybe they sometimes see from us or from anybody else in this life and in this world. And it's something that I think we could really push ourselves to, and I certainly want to push myself to. As this Christmas season is close by, and in fact, I know Hanukkah just started, and we've also got a new year coming up. I definitely would implore you to think about that a little bit. And we all have things in common, and all things that we can find common ground on, and then push ourselves to be a little bit more in that kindness and generosity area. And so, anyway, that I hope that message came across to you pretty well. And I am over half an hour already, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. But I thought that was a pretty thought-provoking episode, and hopefully you did as well. Before I go, of course, we'll just do the call to action. I implore you and pray that you will share this show with everybody you come across. Hit the subscribe button. We'd love to hear your comments and thoughts, whether it's through just comments on this publication, this article, or it's not really an article, but podcast, I should say. Quit doing articles about a year ago. I don't know that I'll get back to that, because that involved a lot of effort, quite frankly. A lot more effort than it does this podcast. But and of course, if you want to do a direct message as well, that's great too. No bots, please. Speaking of that information technology. But with that said, thank you so much for being in the forest this week. There's only 2 more shows left for this year, so basically one right before Christmas, one right before New Year's. Still thinking about if we'll have any special content. They may be shorter shows as well, just for the sake of the holiday, now that I mention it. But anyway, that's something to look forward to, and I look forward to seeing you back here in the forest again next week. So until then, this is your host, Frank Weber, signing off from the forest of It's a Frankly Hairy podcast. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye until next time.